Gold, silver, and Bitcoin all slammed this week. Wow, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet continues to expand at an alarming rate. Wow, the Federal Reserve continues quantitative easing, with the repo market injecting hundreds of billions of dollars to keep U.S. banks functioning as we watch this liquidity crisis worsen. So what can you and I do about this? It's Friday, November 8th, 2019. There is nothing we can do about this, but what we can do is take advantage of the time. The Fed is doing everything they can to put off the Great Depression that is coming to America. So what we do is take advantage of the time. Every day we have, use as an opportunity to be preparing. Right now, gold is at $1,456 an ounce. Silver is at $16.79 an ounce. So today's a great day to buy two of the most undervalued assets on planet Earth, gold and silver. And I'll tell you what I did today. And again, I don't give financial advice, but I do share, pardon me, what I'm doing. And I know a lot of you are doing the same. And a lot of people out there are very, very intelligent individuals. And I've learned a lot from what people are doing, how they're preparing. And I know a lot of people out there today are probably taking advantage of these metal prices. I bought silver today, specifically junk silver. I figured I have, a decent amount of rounds, coins, bars. And so what I thought I really needed to purchase to kind of balance out what I have is junk silver. And the reason being is junk silver is great for bartering. If we get into a situation where we need to barter, if the grid went down, if the dollar collapsed, heaven forbid, but these are all huge possibilities now. Seeing a grid go down, seeing the dollar go down, these are not impossibilities. This is the real world. These are major possibilities. Having junk silver, these are coins from 1964 or before, U.S. coins. You can buy dimes, you can buy quarters, you can buy 50-cent pieces. These are great for bartering. And so instead of having to put a full ounce round or coin in your pocket, you can have a mercury dime. Just 90% silver, going to have massive value. You could put a quarter in your pocket or a 50-cent piece. And these are an exceptional value. You don't pay a whole lot over spot for them. So I went to SD Bullion, link down below. And again, I don't own SD Bullion. I don't own a gold mine or a silver mine for the trolls out there. I don't care where you buy your gold or where you buy your silver. But what I do care about is that you are preparing. And I believe today is a great opportunity at these prices. So go to your pawn shop, go to your jewelry store, go to whoever you like to deal with online. But I think it is of the utmost importance to continue to be acquiring gold and silver, especially at these prices. These are the two most undervalued assets on planet Earth. And silver at $16.79 right now. There is no excuse for anybody watching this video not to have an ounce of silver. Most of you can be putting an ounce or two of silver away per week. Look, I took my paycheck today and I bought silver. I'm not planning on taking a weekend trip or going out to dinner or just blowing it at a football game or at a bar or on a vape. All right. So maybe we'll cut down on the marijuana, the vaping, the beer, the sports, and put $16.79 plus whatever it is over spot, and go buy yourself some silver and have a hard asset. I truly believe many of us are going to look back and shake our heads with how cheap gold and silver were. And many of us are going to kick ourselves that we didn't buy more when we had the opportunity. I really, truly believe that. So again, go buy yourself some junk silver. Go buy yourself, some coins, some rounds, some bars. Just go and get some precious metals. They've never been worth zero. They're never going to be worth zero. And remember this, when you buy them, don't buy them and look at it as an investment like, oh, I'm going to make money next month or next year. Listen, the precious metals market is very volatile. There's massive manipulation. They do not want to see competition versus the dollar. Bitcoin now is around $8,800. They do not want competition for the US dollar. But at some point, they're not going to have a say-so, because we see countries around the world disconnecting and doing whatever they can to not use US dollars, and that is going to continue to gain momentum. I read an article here, central banks buying more gold. And so why are you not thinking like a central bank? Why are you not being your own central bank? Countries continue to diversify their reserves away from the US dollar. Do you really believe the US dollar is going to stand the test of time when in the last 5,000 years, I think we've had about 3,800 different paper fiat currencies throughout history. None of them have stood the test of time. The dollar right now is here, but when we look at the buying power of the US dollar, it has been smashed. Yes, it is the strongest currency when we look at the dollar index, but you're comparing the dollar to currencies all around the world that are sick, dying, overprinted, overmanipulated, and the dollar, to compare it against a bunch of sick currencies being the least sickest, doesn't sell me, and it doesn't give me any insurance or reassurance that it's going to be around for a very long time or that it's going to have a lot of buying power. The dollar index is comparing the US dollar to the other sick currencies. The US dollar is a sick currency. It's just not as sick. When we look at the dollar, a physical dollar, and what it buys today compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, it has been destroyed. This is why it is important to be owning precious metals. And they're going to go up, they're going to go down. You are buying precious metals as insurance. You are putting these precious metals away, buy them, put them away, don't even think about them. This is an insurance policy that when things get very, very bad in America, you're going to have precious metals to fall back on. This will save you, in my humble opinion. This is what's going to save you financially. It's not going to be stocks and bonds and pensions and money markets and 401ks. What will save you are precious metals. And if you don't have them, you're taking a very huge risk here. I'm going to continue with this article. Globally, central banks added another 47.5 tons of gold to their reserves in September, according to the latest data from the World Gold Council. I'm going to go over a list of a few of the countries they have on here and what they've been doing. Turkey added 22.9 tons of gold in September. In August, they added 41.8 tons. Russia, in September, added 11.4 tons. They've been adding roughly about 10 tons a month. China added another 5.9 tons of gold in September. It's the 10th straight month of purchases. And Uzbekistan added 6.5 tons in September. So far in 2019, central banks have purchased 547.5 tons of gold on a net basis that represents a 12% increase year on year. In 2018, world central banks accumulated 651 tons of gold. So again, I believe we have to be thinking and doing what the central banks are doing, not what they're saying. Don't do what they're saying. Do what they are physically doing. And what they're physically doing is buying massive amounts of gold. They are acquiring massive amounts of gold. And I know there's people that are going to be going, oh man, yeah, I've had people tell me that for 5 years. People have been telling me that for 7 years. Gold's been going up. It's been doing quite well. And silver to me is gold's little brother, and gold is going to pull silver up also. And in fact, we will probably see bigger gains percentage-wise in silver than we do in gold. Most people will probably agree silver is the buy right now. The ratio is, I don't know, I'm guessing 88 to 1, somewhere in that neighborhood. So Silver probably is the buy. I like both. If you have the means to diversify and have both, do both. But there are people out there that will argue that you shouldn't have any. And these are typically the most unprepared people who have nothing, or they have some paper. These are typically people who believe nothing's going to happen. If you don't believe anything's going to happen, if you believe that the dollar is going to buy you more next year than it does this year, if you believe that the dollar is going to have more buying power in the future instead of less, and you believe the outlook with the US economy and the global economy is positive, then don't buy any. Me, I don't. I believe the dollar is going to continue to buy less in the future. I believe that its buying power is going to continue to go down. I believe the economic outlook here in the US and globally is going to be, we are going to see a massive downturn, and I believe that we are going to get a depression here in America, and I believe most of the globe is going to get a depression also. I believe it's unavoidable. So when you buy this stuff, you're buying it for insurance. And listen, I hope nothing bad happens. That means that bad things aren't going to be happening on the streets of America. That means that, you know, the value of gold and silver is, it's going to have a value, but it may not, be, what a lot of people forecast it. And that's fine with me, because I understand that when we get into a massive economic collapse in America, when gold and silver goes through the roof, which it will, I also understand what comes with that. Violence and chaos comes with it. Pain and suffering comes with it. A majority of people are going to be living their life in dangerous times. We all are. People are going to be living in very uncomfortable surroundings, very dangerous environments. And so your gold and silver may be worth a lot of money, but you're going to be living in very chaotic, dangerous times. So there's plus and minuses to everything. I personally wish it could all be avoided, but it's not going to be. And this is why it's so important to have. But if you buy gold and silver and in 3 months it doesn't go up, some people just go, oh, I'm getting rid of it. It went down or it didn't do anything. That's not why you buy gold and silver. Gold and silver is insurance. It is betting against the debt. It is betting against the dollar. And it is financial insurance. And make sure you have the security to protect it. A move to minimize exposure to the US dollar, especially by countries like China and Russia, is driving the central banks into a gold buying spree. We will be forced, in my opinion, at some point to go back to sound money. This thing is going to blow up. There's no doubt about it. The US dollar basically has been depleted by about 97%. It's lost 97% of its purchasing power. It's got 3% left, and it's not going to take a whole lot more to deplete that last 3% of buying power with the US dollar. I mean, the only thing really holding the US dollar up right now is it is the world reserve currency. And at some point, I truly believe it will not be. And when that day happens, and it could be a year from now, it could be 10 years from now, nobody knows. But there's a lot of black swans flying around right now, and all it takes is one, and your life is going to change overnight. If something like a Deutsche Bank implodes tomorrow, your life changes. As more and more countries continue to minimize their exposure and defer away from the US dollar, the dollar loses its power. And we have other options like gold and silver. You can't print gold and silver. It keeps banking sound. It shuts the printing presses down because you can't just make money out of thin air. I personally believe that you better have insurance. And if you don't want to lose the money you have, the best place to probably put it right now is going to be gold and silver. Please comment down below. Where do you think the safest place to put your money in right now? Where would that be? I believe that you do have to have some amount of cash. I believe cash, the US dollar, will be the last to go, and it does have some buying power right now. I believe that it is important to have cash. But what I believe is more important is to have silver and gold, because when the cash is gone, what is left? What backs any currency in the world at this point other than gold and silver? If we came out with another currency, if there was some kind of reset, SDRs, whatever people are talking about, cryptos, it's all the same because it's just money on a screen unless there's something backing it up. I believe that, right now the US dollar is basically an electronic money because nobody even really uses the cash. They're using plastic cards and they're buying and selling electronically. Your banks don't have a whole lot of cash in their vaults. We're looking at numbers on a screen with some zeros. That is it. So these things can be made up. We don't even need printing presses now. They can just be made up on a digital screen. So when people begin to lose faith in the system and they begin to lose faith in the money, like the US dollar and many currencies around the world, which is already happening, the only thing that people are going to regain faith in is something physical backing their currency, and that would be gold and silver. What's really concerning is we are watching these markets surge on bad economic data. Dow Jones up about 6.5 points today. So we're pretty flat today, but we are looking at all-time highs on these markets right now. And it's all based on bad data and more optimism with these China trade negotiations, which have gone nowhere in 2 years and probably are going to go nowhere. Listen, if we get a deal, it's going to be a crappy deal. China's not going to stick to any deal. They will stab us in the back in a heartbeat. They cannot be trusted. And if we get a deal, it is not going to be a real deal. China cannot be trusted, bottom line. But these markets are surging on optimism. They're surging on bad economic data. And you say, what kind of bad economic data is out there? Well, where do we begin? I can give you a few more. We know that the Fed is creating inflation right now, even though that they say that they're not. Chicago PMI fell to a nearly 4-year low in October, and the future trend looks worse according to the Chicago PMI. Third quarter productivity has dropped. Labor costs are up. One of the reasons being is inflation. The Atlanta Fed is estimating that fourth quarter GDP growth will drop to around 1%. And we all know that these bubbles keep continuing to expand. We've got massive debt bubbles, household debt, corporate debt, US debt, expanding unlike the world has ever seen. And they continue to lie to you. Don't do what the central banks tell you to do. Do what they are doing. The Federal Reserve is lying to you. They're telling you the consumer is strong. They're telling you that the economy is doing well. The media is telling you to get out there and spend this Christmas and spend money you don't have, going farther into debt. The Fed is creating more debt with these multi-billion-dollar injections, the expansion of the balance sheet, the propping up of these markets. They are having to pump and inject hundreds of billions of dollars into this. And in doing so, they are creating massive amounts of debt. And in return, this is going to make this problem even worse. So one thing we know for sure, the United States of America is going to continue to acquire massive amounts of debt for as long as it can. We know that the average American is also going to do the same. They're going to continue to rack up the credit cards. They're going to continue to rack up auto loans, student loans. The average American is continuing to do the same thing that the US government is doing, and that is acquiring massive amounts of debt. So how do we protect ourselves from debt? We own real things. We don't spend more than we have. That's the best thing to do. So protect yourself from what's coming. There's no way we're going to stop what's coming. The US government is bankrupt right now. So anybody that believes that the economy is great, that the stock market's great, there's no way you can be great when your government owes $23 trillion. And that's not including unfunded liabilities like Medicare and Medicaid. We are now approaching $200 trillion. So there's no way with a country where a majority of its pensions are unfunded, a country that is bankrupt, the US government is bankrupt. We have a Fed now blowing past its balance sheet now to continue quantitative easing in our banking system. So there's no way anybody is going to convince me that this country or that this economy is in good shape, that this currency is in good shape. It is not. So how do we protect ourselves? We own real things. We own assets, whether that's, land, income producing properties, maybe art, gold, silver, and make sure you are your own asset. Have a skill, have a trade, know how to do something in tough times, because really one of the most important assets is you, yourself as a human being, and knowing how to do something. So again, the best way to defend against debt is to own real things, to own assets, and not to be spending more money than you have. More money going out than coming in is a problem. I think people who believe that this is going to continue forever are massively delusional. I think that anyone with a brain understands that we've gone 12 years now without a correction. I believe too many people are staying in these markets too long, hoping to squeeze that extra 3 to 5% out of these markets. How can anyone out there not see the bubbles that have been created? How far do you think this can go? Okay, it's getting massive amounts of help by the Federal Reserve, okay? They are doing everything they can to hold off this depression. We are witnessing quantitative easing taking place right before our very eyes, but they don't want to admit to that. Don't call it quantitative easing. I think people have just been blinded because they don't want the party to end. They are unprepared for what's coming. And you have got to be blind not to be able to see what is happening right now. Again, all of these massive injections, this massive manipulation, all you have to do is look at the data. I just gave you some of it, but we look at the auto sector, we look at retail, we look at shipping and transport, we look at construction, we look at consumer confidence, we look at PMI, we look at the service sector. Everything is contracting. Yet there's people out there that think that 12 years with no correction, that this is just going to continue to go on forever. And again, we're at 1.5 to 1.75 interest rate right now. More help by the Federal Reserve. I mean, just think if the Fed was not interjecting here and stepping in every time these markets sneezed, where we would be right now. We cannot take the training wheels off these markets, because if we do, they crash instantly. Zero hedge today. Sears to close a third of its remaining stores. 96 stores to close by February 20th. This is in addition to the 100 stores announced last month. So it's going to be 196 stores closing by February 2020. And sadly, one of those stores is about 15 minutes from my house in Palm Desert, the Westfield Mall. It is an anchor store. It's been there forever. It will be closing in December. And they're going to be doing their going out of business sale in December, and it will be closing, I believe, in February. And that's really sad to see. That is an anchor store. That is tax revenue that is not going to the city. That is going to be a giant vacancy in that mall that is going to affect surrounding stores. And already that mall's probably got about 15% vacancy. Now, one of the big anchor stores is going to be gone at the beginning of 2020. And this is going to be a big problem. And this is going to be a big problem for many malls. And what people don't understand is that tax revenue is not coming into those cities. And somebody owns that piece of real estate, and somebody is not making an income. There's no income coming into that vacant piece of real estate. And I continue to see massive vacant buildings throughout Riverside County. And here, 15 minutes from my house, I'm going to have another very, very big one here, as Sears will be closing the doors. And I don't know who owns that building, but there's no revenue now coming in. There's no tax money coming to the city. So this has a lot of different effects. And as I said earlier, it affects all the smaller stores around it. And what about the people now that work at that store who no longer will have a job in February 2020? in February 2020. So knowing right now that your store is closing, that you will be unemployed in the beginning of the year in 2020, it's just really sad all the way around. So as we get closer to 2020, a few things I want to talk about briefly. I believe 2020 is going to be a historical year. I believe we are going to see some very bad things occur in our country, politically, socially, and economically. And as we talk about having hard physical assets, putting cash away, having preps, food, water, what have you, you must be able to protect them. There are people who will physically take these things away from you if you cannot protect them. There are people who will physically harm you and your family if you cannot protect your family. So security is the number one asset in my book. So make sure that you are preparing with security number one. There are some very interesting statistics. There was a statistic from 2018 with ICE talking about a number of people who are in this country who should not be here. And they're from very bad parts of the world. They put a number of 10,340 people divided by 4 countries that are not detained, but they're here. So a majority of those people, 6,331, were from Iran. The rest were from Syria, Sudan, and North Korea. These are very dangerous countries. These quite possibly very dangerous people. That number of 10,340, that number could be 5 times that number because these government numbers are very, very conservative. And so many people that go undetected, we have no idea who they are. It could be 10 times that number. But what we do know is we have people here from very dangerous countries that could have very dangerous intentions here in America. And we have our own problems. We have a gang epidemic. We have a drug epidemic. We've got cartels. We've got some real bad problems. You add on people from these countries. We've caught people from other parts of the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. And so these are people that have been caught. What about the ones that we didn't catch? Most come from Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Bangladesh, and India. These people have all been caught coming through our borders. Again, what about the ones that didn't get caught? Tens of thousands of fraudulent documents were seized, including passports and visas. What are the intentions of these people? We've never seen America so divided. We've never economically ever been in this position before with these massive asset bubbles, massive debt bubbles. And we've never had so many people from so many bad places around the world here in America where we have no idea their locations, who they are, or what their intentions are. So anybody out there that believes they shouldn't prepare, good for you. For myself, I live in the real world and I think independently for myself. This is not safe. These kind of people with these kind of numbers in America, not knowing their whereabouts, is not safe. This economy and what's about to happen to it is not safe. The people that you'll be dealing with on the streets of America will not be safe. So I think you owe it to you and your family to take the precaution and make sure that everybody is safe, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Look, I can afford to be wrong, but can you afford for me to be right? That is the question. I hope nothing bad happens. I hope and pray to God nothing bad happens. I certainly would hate to see anything bad happen in America. The amount of civil obedience that we're already seeing with some of these groups, this division we're now seeing, you could be attacked and assaulted for wearing a certain kind of hat, having a certain type of opinion, having free speech, especially here in California. You're really looked down upon. People look down upon you even if you believe in God or believe in having certain rights. Just think how bad this is going to be when people aren't eating, when they don't have food and water. when they're angry, when they don't have their pharmaceuticals, when they have to blame somebody. And you know who they're going to blame? They're going to blame you for all their problems because they've been blaming you for their problems for decades. So when they start going hungry because the EBT checks haven't arrived, the government's not taking care of them because the government had to shut down, or for whatever reason, they're not getting their free food, the plastic card's not working, the EBT system's down. They're going to blame you because they've been blaming somebody their whole life for their problems. And you're going to have to deal with people who blame you for all their problems. You're going to have to deal with people who are withdrawing from illegal drugs or having withdrawals from pharmaceuticals, people who are starving, people who are angry, people who just want to blame you and take it out on you, people who don't like the God you worship, people who don't like the way you look or the way you think. This is all coming to America, and you're going to have to deal with it at some point. Today's a good day to start dealing with it. Start preparing. God bless every one of you. Have a phenomenal weekend. And remember, embrace the fight. Don't deny what's happening. Don't stick your head in the sand. Don't be afraid. These are exciting times. Embrace it. Prepare. America needs every good person right now to support it. Otherwise, America does not survive without you and I. God bless.